on Male Beauty by Boyd Campbell.
The moment I wake up, before you put on your makeup, I say a little prayer for you. You're combing your hair now and wondering what dress to wear now. I say a little prayer for you. Forever and ever, you stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. Oh, how I love you together. Together is how it must be. To live without you would only mean heartbreak for me.
For lack of a better word, can men be beautiful? Actually, let's use that word specifically. Are men beautiful? Not in a sense of he's a beautiful animal that's often applied to athletes, but beautiful in the sense that flowers, colorful fish, sunsets, and birds are beautiful. Are men beautiful? Does it make a man weak to be beautiful? Culture, sexuality, perception, and history are such a deep part of what creates our aesthetic. Is it scandalous for a fucking old, very southern, very straight white dude to say men are beautiful? Being part of a Jackson family could be weird. My father's mother, my grandmother, who we called Bubba, who absolutely was not a Bubba, insisted that I know everything there is to know about painting and literature, but painting is a hobby for you, son, not a vocation, and don't read that man from Oxford. He's a pornographer, meaning William Faulkner, who was Granddaddy's cousin. Sanctuary and Temple Drake did a number on Bubba. She never forgave him. I suppose since I wasn't allowed to actually sell any paintings I might do, she wanted me to be a patron, a position fitting of Le Dauphin. My friend Doug Mann started calling me that to give me shit. I don't think my grandmother thought it was funny. I think she saw it as a life plan. Boyd, this is John Gaddis. Boyd, this is Marie Hull. Boyd, this is Mildred Wolfe. Boyd, this is Eudora Welty. I knew them as little old people before I understood why they were famous. The connection to Millsaps College should be obvious. For a while, the Carl Wolfe Art Retreat was held at the farm in Raymond my Uncle Boyd bought in the late 40s, before they found more permanent digs. My school, St. Andrew's Episcopal Day School, was utterly dedicated to art. Even then, they had a primitive art collection that would blow your mind. They had trouble finding a guy to actually run the art department. When I was really little, a fellow was much loved by his students, but when rumors about his sexuality started getting around, the parents didn't seem to care much. But other people in Jackson had opinions about a goddamn liberal homo art teacher, so off to California he went. After some interim, people, including one of my fraternity brothers, found a guy with a pretty extensive art degree who was also a pretty famous potter. He spent the entire art education budget on pottery equipment, supplies, and even started building a massive kiln when parents noticed he was selling the pots he made at St. Andrews and keeping the money to buy weed. Damn beautiful pots, though. Nice guy. I used to take a summer class from him. My first big art teacher was the daughter of my grandfather's best friend. Alice Riley was the daughter of Dr. Carter O'Farrell. My grandmother called him Ka-Ta. We called him Dr. O'Farrell. His daughter insisted I call her Alice, not Mrs. Riley, even though she was a lady. She taught oil painting in a frame and art shop in Fondren, not Brown's. That's why I was able to make that painting of Katie when I was just 14, imagining her a grown-up, which she never got to be. One of the biggest influences on my art until I got to college was my schizophrenic brother, who was a polymath and brilliant. We were both influenced by the work of James Warren, who published magazines with titles like Vampirella, Creepy, Eerie, and Famous Monsters of Filmland. I loved comic books for the stories, but Warren introduced me to the paintings of Frank Frazetta, James Corbin, and Basil Gogos. At the very first new Famous Monsters convention in Arlington, Virginia, I met Gogos in an elevator. and we started a tradition of having breakfast together at cons around the country. Despite being massively ugly, and from Mississippi, I always found it easy to make Yankee and foreign friends. They think we're charming. I guess we can be sometimes. At college, art education started to become something serious. My mother continued my grandmother's practice of getting Boyd to meet every important artist in town. Some lived very near us. Jackie Mina was across the street. Catherine Speed was a block away. Edwina Goodman, Yvette Sturgis, and Sudie Manning were a few more blocks away. In college, I was supposed to buckle down and get good grades in business, despite my learning disabilities, because that was my future. If I were to take courses in the things I loved, I'd have to sneak, which I did. Lance Goss and Lucy Millsaps watched me grow up as a child at Galloway Memorial, then United Methodist Church. We're still united, but some ain't. We'll miss you. Lucy and Lance were both very aware of most of the history with my brother, but more importantly, my own issues with speaking and learning disabilities. They also knew I was taking some sort of drug to make me strong. Steroids were legal when I started. I bought them from a cop. Lucy was afraid the injections might have a Jekyll Hyde effect on me. She wasn't wrong. Knowing people I could discuss visual aesthetics with who talked to me like I was grown was huge, more than huge. Lance was a theater artist, but he blocked and cast for the eye. Looking at his production photos now, he clearly could have been a painter had somebody given him a brush. He didn't like getting dirty, though. Last night at The World Goes Round, I went early so I could spend time with my boy, Sam, and Brent, my master. You know, Sam, speaking strictly on visuals, the most beautiful play you ever did was Metamorphosis. He said, well, yeah, it had a pool, which it indeed did. The foundation for the Christian Center Theater broke one night. I was actually there when it happened because Brent was doing theater things in Utah and Morgan Gadd was useless as tits on a bull. I could feel and hear the old girl cry and moan as her back snapped under my feet. The president of Millsaps at the time, who was struggling to find her way in the job, thought she might get someone to put structural support piers in place, but I later learned that actually made things worse. Eventually, we could use the classroom parts of the building, but not the theater. Brent would call me fairly regularly. You're a goddamn Campbell. Why can't you get the goddamn president to fix the goddamn floor? George is dead. So is Daddy. The number of people who care what I think is getting smaller every day, and my girlfriend is a lycanthrope. Add coitus with a werewolf to the list of things Brent never had to deal with. I couldn't do math in my head, but I had calculators. Brent printed me off a smaller copy of the set drawing. Water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. They were building a swimming pool on stage. The combined weight of all that water on our very broken stage floor bothered me. Fuck that, we've done worse, Brent said. Indeed, we had. Beautiful show. Hardly Sam's best show, but goddamn was it beautiful. I said a little prayer the old girl's spine would hold up long enough for the run of the show. Lucy Millsaps was the first person to introduce me to the concept of nude models. I'd seen naked people before. I'm not naming names. I'll tell Maria if she asks, since she's not on the list. Lucy believed that, in a small school like Millsaps, using students as models was a bad idea, because what would their grandmother think? She was dyed-in-the-wool Mississippi lady. Since students were out, she hired crazy people. That's an interesting concept. Most of the time, she had students in leotards and let Bebe Wolf use her studio for nude classes at night. Bebe, Mildred, and Carl's daughter also believed in hiring crazy people as artists' models. Ain't nothing more awkward than riding the elevator down with the crazy lady you just saw naked who wants to get a beer with you at Pops Around the Corner. Mississippi, man. Mississippi. Normally, I'd only go to Pops Around the Corner for an Irish bar fight, drinking beer with a woman whose name I couldn't remember, but having one upward-looking breast and one downward-looking breast wasn't on my agenda. I'll never comment one way or the other on Lance's or Lucy's sexuality. That's their business. They never chose to be public about it either way. To me, sexuality isn't part of the issue, although many people will swear it is. Lucy assigned us to do self-portrait drawings. You could take critical notes in class or in her office. When it came my turn, she said, "Let's do you in my office." She didn't even show the drawing to my classmates. We discussed light and dark, form and balance. Then she said, "Are you okay? This doesn't actually look like you." "I've never minded being ugly. I can lift heavy things," I said, trying to laugh it off. "Boyd, you're a beautiful man. This isn't a drawing of a beautiful man." I've never written down the other half of that conversation before. The concept of me being a beautiful man seemed so alien to me. By then, I'd drawn hundreds of men and boys. I understood the concept of male beauty, I thought, but it had nothing to do with me. I have a friend. His name is Michael. Michael is trans, very, very young. Michael is one of the strongest, most beautiful people I know. Becoming male after being assigned female at birth requires the use of medical hormones. Some of the very same hormones I took to become strong. They had a very different impact on Michael. When I met Michael, he was very, very young. I don't know much about the steps in his personal journey, but it was clear to me that despite living as a man, he hadn't begun the medical path to becoming one, medically. Nobody asked me if I wanted to be a man. I was just dropped off at the hospital after living inside my mama for 9 months. "He's ugly, but he's a boy. Cut the tip off that thing, will you? He's a Christian." One more thing somebody could have asked my opinion on before doing it. In art, at least when I took art, you start with drawing balls, then cubes, then pots, then flowers, then a chunk of wood, and then a skull, a human skull. We actually sold them. The molds were taken from actual dead people, but the ones we sold were plastic. The ones Lucy had were plastic. After learning the skull, we learned the muscles. Skin and hair were last. I drew as many faces as I could find. I made a drawing of a woman I knew as a Millsap student who just found out about it last summer. I gave it to her daughter. I'm also a fairly experienced and semi-talented theater makeup artist. I'm very familiar with the differences between an utterly naked female face and an utterly naked male face. Even now, men rarely wear makeup. Well, maybe the president. Michael still had a very womanly face. Scratch that. Michael still had a girl's face. No amount of vocal training, not wearing makeup, and not waxing your facial hair was going to cover that up. Not from me. More than that, Michael was a raven. I have a particular weakness for that combination of colors, like slavery, basically. As a woman, Michael would have been very traditional and very clearly beautiful. Boys at Millsaps would have never left her alone with a dancer's body and the voice of an angel. I worried about how Southern people were handling a trans male in the tail end of the first quarter of the 21st century in Jackson, Mississippi. Even now, I have feelers out for anyone who might be menacing Michael. He probably didn't know that until now. I thought about Elliot Page, who began life as Ellen Page, also a remarkably beautiful raven with a dancer's body. Ellen came out as a lesbian. Don't care. I've loved more lesbians and made love to more lesbians than I have PCA Presbyterians. That's the God's honest truth. There's nothing wrong with PCA Presbyterians. We just run in different circles. Michael was in Sam's current play, The World Goes Round. Hearing this, I was interested in two things because the last time I talked to Michael, he mentioned something about hormone therapy. I wanted to know about how his singing voice had changed and how his face had changed. First things first, Michael has a beard and a mustache now, a very millennial style, but very real. My boy Sam starts to look like Ran Wilson as he gets older, but he can't grow a beard like him. Michael might have a shot. The muscles in his face were thicker, shorter. His voice was still very much his voice, but broader, stronger. The drugs that nearly killed me, making me the strongest man in Mississippi, were making my boy Michael look more like a man. A man. A beautiful, quite talented man, but clearly a visually, aesthetically beautiful man. Lance Goss knew more about beauty, male or female, than anyone I ever knew. Lance had two very specific types of men he considered beautiful: brutish football types and smaller, almost ladylike types. For those of us who were in the players, think about Caleb. Caleb was clearly beautiful, clearly male, but he moved like a house wren or a young swan. A good athlete, he'd be somebody you'd want on your side in a fight, plus he was Scottish. But he had the aesthetic impression of a bird. I think Lance would have called Michael beautiful. I do. The world will probably beat itself up over the trans issue for a while. I will not. I've made my decision. As long as you're not forcing people to be something they're not, I'm satisfied with letting people make their own decisions about their sexuality and gender. I'd rather nobody made those decisions for me. Thank you very much. So, are men beautiful? Well, despite what Lucy says, I'm not. As I wrote last night, my being beautiful isn't something I ever cared about. I got other stuff going on. Men are and can be beautiful, though. One day, around the potted oak, in the Millsaps Bowl, we played a game. If you're straight, but they made you be gay for a day, who would you be gay with? David Bowie. Hands down, David Bowie. Hell, they wouldn't even have to force me. He'd just have to say yes. Then the son of a bitch died. David Bowie was the third person to play Merrick in The Elephant Man. He was the first person to play the role in the finished play. There's a great deal of nudity in the play. He did those scenes wearing a sort of drape, a diaper. There are photographs of Merrick naked. Very young, Bowie had a reputation for being one of the most beautiful people in the world, with his stage debut playing the ugliest man who ever lived. For a while, I dated a stripper. Don't laugh. She wanted to be a writer or a singer. She's a nurse. Things happen. Part Korean, she was stunningly beautiful. We discussed putting on The Elephant Man with her, utterly naked, as Merrick. We practiced scenes together. I even talked to Larry Wells about playing Trevis, an enormously difficult role. The nudity on stage at Millsaps might be a problem. Plus, the stage was condemned. Nobody listens to me. Girlfriends don't last. Ideas for plays come and go. I'd love to still do it, though. I'd need a new Merrick and a new Trevis. Men absolutely can be beautiful. Maybe not me. Michael is, though. Maybe not David Bowie beautiful, but beautiful.
The Life of Boyd is a reader-supported publication. To receive new posts and support my work, consider becoming a free or paid subscriber.